All right, you guys. So this past week, we've been talking a lot about the early explorers and like the motivations and struggles that they faced. And we also talked about colonization. And with colonization, that brought cooperation and conflict with the Native Americans, right?
Yes, ma'am.
That the Europeans had to face.
Wait, how did do cooperation?
So we're going to talk about that right now. So who can tell me what cooperation means? Does anyone know? Hayden?
Cooperation means like having to work together.
Yeah, like being able to work together. That's a good. And who knows what conflict means? Well,
Like arguing.
like, yeah, like a disagreement, arguing. So today I just passed out a passage that we're going to read together. And it's going to kind of go over like conflicts and cooperation that the Native American and Europeans went through together. Colton?
With the conflict, with the conflict, the cooperation kind of conflict and compromise.
Yeah, it would go under that section. Good observation. All right, so I'm going to start off by reading this. But first, what do we call people that were here in the land like before the Europeans came? Nikendra? Okay. Is there another word that we use?
Native American.
Native Americans. Okay, so the Native Americans were here first. Okay, so European explorers came to the New World of North America in the 1500s. Before that time, the continent was an unknown place to them. These explorers saw it as an entirely new land with animals and plants to discover. They also met new people in this exciting new world, people with fascinating life ways that the Europeans had never seen in languages that they had never heard. The New World for Europeans was actually a very old world for the various people they met in North America. Today we call those people Native American. The history of European settlement of North and South America is one of both cooperation and conflict with Native Americans. In many cases, Native Americans tried to prevent the landings of European peoples on their land. Over time, Native Americans would help the Europeans from Perel. And if you don't know what that word means, we can look right down at the bottom of our passage, and it says, the definition is to put in a dangerous or difficult position that could end in death. So what that's saying is Native Americans would help them, like survive, basically, the Europeans. For example, in 1607, the Powhatans helped save the colony of Jamestown from starvation. Europeans and Native Americans would trade corn, furs, and other commodities for bread, for beads and glass trinkets. So would those be examples of cooperation or examples of conflict between the Europeans and Native Americans?
Cooperation.
Riley?
Cooperation.
Cooperation, and why do you think it's like cooperation instead of conflict?
Because they're like working together.
Because they're working together. Okay. So within a short period of time, cooperation gave way to conflict. One of the chief problems involved the different concept of land and land ownership. Native Americans generally believed that the land was a gift from the Creator to be used for the welfare of the people. Europeans came to America with a different concept. Land was a source of both livelihood and a source of personal wealth. Wars and conflicts arose as the Europeans and Native Americans fought for the rights of the land. So was this examples of conflict or cooperation?
Conflict.
Conflict. So what were they fighting over?
Oh, the land and
Kaden?
fighting over land
They're,
power.
yes, because,
Because the Native Americans, they
Uh-huh.
But then Europeans, they just wanted power so everyone would listen to it.
Yeah, so the Native Americans thought like this land was theirs to like share with others, but the Europeans came in and they were like, no, we want this land for our country so we can claim it and have more land and more power, more wealth, right? Okay, so we are going to look at 6 different sources, and these are going to be in your Google Classroom. You guys are going to analyze the pictures and read the text in your small groups, and then we're going to kind of go over it together. So there's 6 sources, and we have 6 tables, right? So we are going to do table 1. You're going to have source 1. Table 2, you're going to have source 2. Table 3, source 3. Table 4, source 4. Table 5, source 5. Table 6, source 6. And some of these are kind of short, so when you finish your source, you guys can go along and read the other ones and try to figure those ones out as well. And we're going to go over that together right now. So on this sheet that I'm giving you is the graphic organizer that we're going to fill out. You guys can get into your Google Classroom. You're welcome.
Is that like really what Native Americans look like, or is that just what they think?
I would assume that is what they look like back then. So you have a graphic organizer, and it should look like this. And did everyone find that in their Google Classroom, or is it taking a minute to load? Okay, then I'll just go over this first with you. So in your graphic organizer, you have the sources listed right here. And you see this big box. We're actually going to go over that together after. We're going to put a little summary in there. But when you find the source that you're going to be doing, in this box it says cooperation or conflict. So we're going to write if the source is describing a conflict or they're describing a cooperation. Okay, Ava? Oh, you got a pencil? Okay, let me get you one. And then in the description box, we're going to write like a brief description on the source that you have. So you don't have to write like everything that the source has, just like a description as to why it's cooperation or why it's describing a conflict, okay? Bailey?
It's cut off.
Oh, it's cut off.
So I do the second one.
So it should be the second one. Go up.
Well, is this source 2, is this picture?
Yes. So that's going to be source 2. They should all be there and labeled with what source they are. Yes?
I'm trying to go to the classroom and do that.
You're gonna. Can you bring that to Miss Prothro and she'll help you get on there?
I have a picture.
So some of them don't have pictures and some of them do. So if you have one that doesn't have one, just read the passage and you can determine if that's a conflict or cooperation. So I'm going to give you 10 minutes and I'm going to put the timer on, okay? Do you have the...
I had it pulled up. look down here. I'm not in the
Miss
Okay,
Gail,
I guess I
are we,
Yes, this is the small group work, so you can work with your group on it.
okay.
Yeah. There you go.
So y'all just go to online stopwatch. I'm sorry. I exit out. What do you do? And then countdown, and then 10 minutes, and then set, and then start, and then pull it over.
Alright, I put the stopwatch on the screen so you guys know how much time you have left, okay?
Oh, we're Allie. Well, that's too long.
So if you finish the source that you have, go on and look at the other sources and try to finish them all because we're going to go over it all together, okay?
No, you're two. Oh.
Guys,
Write down for all the sources or just for
finish yours first. Oh, you guys already finished, so yeah, go on and finish the other ones too.
I'm done. If you want
Bailey, do you need help?
no, because we've done group finishes and it was one Read that sources with this one.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, once you guys finish yours too, you can go and finish the rest.
I already know. Battle different. Wait, where's source 2?
Source 2 is going to be at the very top. It'll be 1 and then 2. I know it kind of got cut off the source number.
Our thing is just a 2-line.
So you're going to want to analyze that picture, right, and see what's happening in there, and read the title, and a lot can be determined by looking at those key features. Allie, Ava?
Do we just put like what they were like?
So you guys are going to be number 5.
Yeah.
What
Do we just
That's for you guys to determine, but we are going to go over it, okay? So you want to read that passage carefully, and you're going to determine, like, is there a disagreement? Are they working together? If it's a disagreement, then it's a conflict, right? But if they're working together on something, then that's going to be cooperation. Yes. So once you guys finish that one, you guys can move on to another one, okay? Alex?
What, convent or conflict?
Yes, so this, in this box, it's going to be cooperation or conflict.
Wait.
And this box, you're going to be describing why it is cooperation or why it is conflict.
But I don't get what it means.
So conflict is a disagreement, so that's like wars and when they're fighting, when they're not getting along. Cooperation is going to be like when they are getting along, when they're compromising,
Like sharing.
when they're working together. Okay, done?
I finished reading all the sources.
Great, you finished all of them? And you wrote the description? Okay, so yeah, you're going to want to look on here, and for each one, you're going to want to do what you did for source 4, okay? And we'll go over it together as a class.
I already did 3 of them.
Great job. And you guys can work as a group too, okay? Yes, Cameron?
Is this good, or do you have to write more? Trade crops.
Good job. Yeah, we're going to go over it together, but that does look great so far. Are you guys doing good over here? Look at you go. You already have 3 done. Awesome.
Can we do the rest?
Yep, you can go and move on and do the rest. guys finding everything good over here?
Badge! Okay, I got badge.
Dude.
What's your name?
Do you need some help, Seth?
Yeah.
You got it?
Oh,
So source one is up here. So that's fur trade, that's source one. Alright, you guys, you have about 5 more minutes, okay? Do you guys need some help?
You did.
So are we supposed to do more than one?
So once you finish yours, you can move on and
Why
start
you
doing the rest, yeah.
went to Google Class? Up there on.
So you guys finished 2, you're working on number 1 now?
Yeah.
Okay.
Why you went to Clever?
Molly,
It's just
the Beaver Wars,
Wait, are they fighting? We already did
the Iroquois,
the Iroquois battle.
it's like a tribe name.
So that's a conflict.
When you see the title Beaver Wars, do you think conflict or
Yeah,
you
there
think
were. There is time. Sourceless did not put conflict in the control of the river versus French and horns. I don't know 6 times.
How's it going over here? So in this box, you're writing like why you think it's cooperation or conflict. So this box, you're just writing cooperation or conflict. Okay?
Okay.
Seth, in that box, you're just writing cooperation or conflict. This box is description, so that's when you're going to be describing why it is cooperation or why it is conflict. Hayden,
That's not conflict.
great job. We're going to go over it in about 3 minutes, okay? Yeah, you have about 3 more minutes. When Drew comes back, okay? Do you guys figure it out?
Hey.
over here?
Okay, so the first one is cooperation, because they're always just trading, having like a good connection, they're just trading birds, food, dogs, items. I finished. I just like, they're cooperating and helping each other. Skill up.
Yes, and that's exactly what cooperation is. Great job. We're going to go over it in just a minute.
Which one are you? Number 3 is number 4.
You guys are working so hard over here. I love it.
Oh, you're doing number 4. Poppy Grove.
Okay.
Then did not let us Poppy Grove. And we copied him.
Okay, well, let's read the sources for ourselves then, yeah? We could read them and analyze the pictures and get the information, right?
He's a boy. He's force people to stay in sun gathering. So they traded.
Wait, we're being like kind of like filmed to from another classroom, like to another
And in the
school.
sun,
Uh-huh.
stand in the sun.
How's it going, Will?
Good.
Good.
I was gonna use that one, but right to my left hand.
All right, you guys have about 1 more minute, okay?
I have like a question about this. I'm just telling you something. Have you ever wondered what would your like ancestors before like who do you think was like the first of your family?
I thought about that.
What kind of religion?
Great job. Yeah, we're going to go over it in less than a minute, okay? How's it going over here, table 1?
Good. people first.
With your left hand. Your left hand. No, because you bumped I bumped on the shoulder part.
Blah, blah.
You know,
Landon, how's it going over here?
I don't understand something. All they're talking about is making a treaty. How is that cooperation?
And then
So do you know what a treaty
conflict.
is? So a treaty is like, okay, Drew, do you want to help Allie out?
So a treaty is basically
All right, you guys, if you didn't finish, that's okay, because we're going to go over it together. Thank you. All right, you guys can close your Chromebook. And we're going to go over this together, okay? All right, you guys. So here is source one. We're going to look at it together up here. And it says, the first Europeans to purchase furs from Native Americans were French and English fishermen who during the 1500s fished off the coast of northeastern Canada. In exchange, the Indians received European manufactured goods such as guns, metal, cooking utensils, and cloth. This trade became so lucrative that many fishermen abandoned fishing and made voyages to North America only to trade in furs. So, table one. Do you guys think that this is cooperation or conflict? Cooperation, right? And why do you think it is cooperation?
Because there was no argument. Because they traded for furs from the Native Americans.
Because they're trading, yeah. So the Native Americans had these furs, and then the Europeans would trade stuff for them. And then they would sell them for a lot of money, right?
I'm trying to move. It was way off.
All right, do you guys see that? Here, let me flip it so it's easier.
Wait, is it okay if we put something different but close to that?
Yeah, if you put something a little different, but it's kind of meaning the same thing, that's totally fine. So we put cooperation, and Native Americans and Europeans traded furs with each other. Riley?
Is it okay if we put the same purchase first and then Native Americans?
Yep, that's perfect.
Can we name what they traded? Like, can we put down what they
If you did, that's totally fine.
traded?
As long as you have something in there about them trading and it being cooperation, then you're good. All right, so source 2. It says Hernando de Soto, governor of Florida, tortures native chiefs. In their search for wealth, De Soto and his men tortured and brutally killed many Native Americans.
How was he governor of Florida?
So just by reading the title, we can see, like, this isn't a good situation, right? So table 2, Drew, is this cooperation or conflict?
This is conflict.
This is conflict. And why do you think it's conflict?
I think it's conflict just by looking at the image and reading it with our eyes and seeing what the words say. We can tell it's nothing here is.
So you analyzed the picture and you saw what was happening and you read it and you just determined, like, torturing is definitely conflict, right? Okay. So under source 2, we wrote conflict, and it says Europeans tortured and killed Native Americans.
Pretty sure De Soto died either of age or fighting the Native Americans.
Oh, really?
His own crew members killed him. Yeah, or
His own men killed him. Wow.
Well, because he thought they brought him to them for them to die. But I think
Wow.
it's Native Americans. Yeah, probably. If you're in a war, most likely you're going to die unless you don't later on doing that.
All right, you guys, let's look at source 3, and this is the Old Treaty Elm. And I heard some questions about what the word treaty means. Can someone tell me what a treaty is, Will?
Agreement. Yes.
An agreement
To make peace between people.
to make peace between people. Kaden, do you have something to add?
A treaty is kind of like a truce.
Mm-hmm.
Truce is like whenever people set aside their differences and they come together for like a plan or something.
Yeah, so Kaden says it's like when you put aside your differences, it's kind of like a truce. So like a treaty is like something that's signed to end like a conflict.
Didn't they make a truce for slavery?
Uh-huh.
They also made a truce.
Drew?
They made this truce between the Spanish and I can't remember the other one, but eventually that treaty was broken. Eventually.
Yeah, so throughout history we've had a lot of treaties that have helped us end a lot of wars and conflicts with other people.
But then they started again.
Okay, so in source 3 it says William Penn making his treaty with the Native Americans under the famous Old Treaty Elm. And in this picture you can see like the Europeans and Native Americans, they're like shaking hands, right? So table 3, Briley, is this a conflict or is this a cooperation? Cooperation. And Shane, why is it cooperation?
The treaty was between France and New York, and they broke it. They wanted New York wanted guns, but in trade, Anthony wanted land, but they broke that treaty.
Yeah, we've had a lot of treaties. Okay, so yeah, you got table 3. You're exactly right. This would be an example of cooperation, and it's because that they agreed to a peace treaty. So as long as you have something written along the lines of an agreement. Huh?
You put making this treaty with the Native Americans?
Perfect. Riley?
Could you put William Penn made a treaty with the Native Americans?
That's great. Yep. All right, so the next one we're going to look at is source 4. And this source says European document, unknown author, circa 1580. The Spanish forced the people to stand all day in the hot sun, gathering gold in the sand of the rivers. By this means, a great number of them died, and a great number of them, seeing themselves in a life of misery and slavery, did not want to live. And many would not marry because they did not want to have their children slaves to the Spaniards. So, table 4, is this an example of cooperation or is this an example of conflict?
But on there it says people did not want to live. Does that mean some of them committed suicide?
It could mean that. It means that they were they were so unhappy and just living this life that they were not liking so much that they would rather be dead. Yeah. So it is definitely an example of conflict because they were making them like slaves and doing all this work, right?
Like the Native Americans? I'd rather die doing God.
So, under source 4, we put conflict, and we put in the description Europeans forced Native Americans into slavery. Shane?
The Spanish forced the slaves to gather gold.
Yep, that's perfect. Mackenzie? So like the Spanish wars like the Europeans. Kanan?
Can you put the Spanish force people who like goes in the hot sun and then die?
Yep.
And I'm pretty sure DeSoto.
Could you imagine like working in those conditions? Like being forced to work there while it's just so hot
Kind of.
that people are dying from it? Stuff?
This morning in Palm Springs, it was DNA. It was 111 degrees on space.
Yeah, that's about 35 minutes from my hometown. So it's pretty hot out there right now.
It was 111 degrees this morning. I'm pretty sure that last year I researched about this, and I'm pretty sure that DeSoto led this.
Oh, wow.
Because then he was like a good man, but then after he found a little bit of gold, he realized how much power that could get him.
Mhm. I'm so glad that you're making those connections from last year.
Yeah. So then he like just won that and killed him.
Mhm.
Like made him sweat.
All right, you guys. Okay, we're going to look at source 5 now. And this one says the Pilgrims learned to farm. These skilled Native American farmers knew how to get the most out of the poor coastal soil and taught the Pilgrims to do the same. Unlike the soil of southern England, which is deep, nutrient-rich, loamy, and easy to hand till, the soil in coastal Massachusetts is shallow, sandy, and stony, making it hard to work by hand. Before learning the best crops to grow in their home, the Pilgrims would have probably tried and failed to grow rye, barley, and wheat and a variety of English garden vegetables. So looking at this passage, table 5, is this an example of cooperation or conflict? Molly? Cooperation, and why do you guys think that it's cooperation? Ava? Yeah, because they're teaching them how to like grow crops, right? Okay, so for that one, we put cooperation, and we put Native Americans teach Europeans how to farm and grow their food.
If we look at if I just put that they taught how to grow crops.
Uh-huh. Right?
Is it okay that I just put learn from the Native Americans?
You could add something about like growing food,
Wait, so I'm confused.
because that like helps them not starve, right?
I'm confused. So who taught the Pilgrims?
Well, the Native Americans were already there, so they learned like.
They learned how to farm and like take care of it.
Mhm.
So the Native Americans taught. I think he's asking. The Native Americans came. What tribe helped them?
Quante.
We learned about Quanto last year.
Uh-huh. So we're kind of touching back on like some of the things that you guys have already learned. Okay, so now we're going to look at source 6, and source 6 is the last one. And this says Beaver Wars. The Iroquois battled the French and Hurons for the control of the beaver trade along the St. Lawrence River. So just by looking at the picture and the title, Table 6, do you guys conclude that this is cooperation or conflict? Conflict. And why do you guys think that it's conflict, Carson?
Because they're battling.
Because they're battling?
Over like the control of something.
Yeah, so they are in like a war. So that's definitely conflict.
So is it really just a war, or is it just like a little? It's like just not like a little fight like your siblings would have, but like a fight, like a little fight, less than a war.
No, a war. I mean, it was a war. hurting each other over it, killing each other over it. So it was very important to them. Carson.
Shane is.
Oh.
I know, I'm watching.
Gray.
I noticed that it goes cooperation, conflict, cooperation, conflict, cooperation, conflict.
So you notice a pattern? Yeah, there is a pattern there. Okay, so in the description we should have something along the lines of Native Americans and Europeans fought over the control of the beaver trade. And when you guys are done with that, we're going to write in that big box under the Native American and European. And we're going to put like a little summary on this whole lesson, okay? So we're going to put throughout history, Native Americans and Europeans have cooperated with each other, and they have also conflicted with one another. Okay? Briley? Yes, you can get a new pencil.
So like sometimes the Native Americans got along, but then sometimes they didn't.
Exactly.
So yeah, like what Karen said, it's like me and my little brother.
True. It's like me and Briley. Get along sometimes. Sometimes
You
we
like
fight.
Briley and Bryson?
How do I get to this? All right, you guys, when you're done with that, we have a exit ticket, and it's going to be in your Google Classroom. It is in the same place.
Is it the last thing
that
we do on Google?
And this is going to be like a constructive response question, and it says, explain how early explorations caused cooperation and conflict between the Europeans and Native Americans. So we just talked about 6 different conflicts or cooperations, right? So you guys are going to pick one of each, and you're going to write a little bit about it in that section. Mackenzie? Oh, okay. Let me turn off the lights for you.
Whoa, man.
Can you see that? Can you see that better, Mackenzie? If not, I can bring you the copy when everyone's done, so you can copy it down, okay?
Can we use our sheet that we just did to help us?
Yes, you can use the sheet that we just completed to help you on the exit ticket.
So what do we have to do?
You're going into your Google Classroom, and you're going to the exit ticket, and you're going to pick one conflict and one cooperation, and you're going to write a little bit about it in the response area.
Wait, what's the word after?
Beaver trade. So you guys, we're going to give you a few minutes to do that. You said 8 minutes? All right, you guys. You have about 8 minutes to complete your exit ticket.
We did the Oh, the other one.
Yes, this is the constructive response. So you guys are writing about one conflict and one example of cooperation that we just talked about and we read about.
Does it have to be a complete thought, or should it just be like?
It should be in sentences, I believe.
His computer is jacked up. When it was like this, his computer was kind of like that.
This profile will help him. Table 5 is doing an awesome job. They're really working hard and staying quiet, Carson.
Okay, so do you have to be like, one cooperation in conflict between the Europeans and Native Americans are?
Yes. So you're going to talk about one cooperation, one conflict.
No, but you have to like be like restate, or you just be like,
You can state it. That may help you.
oh, you can. It's an option.
It needs to be in sentence form. So,
Could you do that? I know it's spelled.
you should write like a full sentence on it.
Okay.
One cooperation is this,
Perfect.
and then like period, then another sentence.
Yeah.
This one conflict is.
That's exactly what we want to see. Ava?
So do we just write the, did you say the Native Americans Corporation and that? And we say
You would just be like, one cooperation between the Europeans and Native Americans is
oh, that's the same.
blank. And then
That's
one
the
conflict that happened. Yeah.
Would you type in the source?
Ms. Presto, do you want them to talk about what source they got it from? You can.
Could you just put like one cooperation is that, like just put in the box?
Yeah,
Oh, so just copy the box.
pretty much. Table 2, do you need some help?
A hit finish, I hit some bit already.
So she did cooperation, but she didn't do a conflict.
I did one conflict.
Oh, but you already
hit
submitted
some
it?
bit
I can see it.
already.
Ms. Presto, we'll see if she can get it back to you. Yes, Lucas?
I don't understand it.
So you're explaining one conflict and one cooperation that happened between Europeans and Native Americans. We just went over 3 cooperations and 3 conflicts. So you're basically just taking one and writing a little summary about it.
It
Okay?
said explain how early explorers and
So the Europeans would be those early
yeah.
explorers, right?
Goodness.
Perfect. That looks great, Cameron. Carson?
So just like this. So just.
That's great. Now write about one conflict, okay?
I'm trying to figure out if I can resend it back. Miss Bertha, did you get mine? Mine aren't sorry.
All right, you guys have a little bit more than 3 more minutes. Yes, perfect. So when you guys are done with that exit ticket, you guys can close your Chromebooks and glue in your cooperation and conflict graphic organizer into the next blank page of your social studies learning log, okay?
Oh, is that good?
Also, when you're done, after you glue in your graphic organizer, you can put the passage that we read together into your social studies pocket of your binder. Okay? The small graphic organizer you're gluing in. Marissa? Aiden, I'm gonna scoot your turn real quick. So
Dude, I'm so good at PowerPoint.
This is my first
Right.
This is my
Wait,
first
hold on. Did
you get Mama
is this like yours?
Yeah, that's great.
So to explain that. Oh, we can get on intro, right?
Once you have everything glued in and everything, we'll talk about it.
Are we allowed to look back at our sources for help?
Uh-huh. I'm looking for the quietest table who's doing everything that they're supposed to so I can give them a table point. Table 1 is doing really, really good today. Oh, great. Thank you, Allie. Bill?
Do you want us to put this paper in our
Yes, so the big paper that's titled European Contact with Native Americans, that is what goes into your social studies pocket. The graphic organizer is what we're gluing into our social studies learning log.
Don't actually put it in like this, or could I just fold it up because you can definitely see.
I would try to fit it in there. I mean, if
I'm
it's
gonna
easier
fold it
for you,
up.
that's great. Did everyone finish their exit ticket? Yes. Alright, so it looks like everyone turned theirs in, so good job. Nikenda, did you need those still? Were you able to get everything? Okay. Huh? Alright, you guys. Thank you so much for being so good.